a horse in a field in one clip, and then some dancing, and then genocide, and then movie reviews. Like, so you're like, you're constantly like bing, bing, bing. And the medium's just not super conducive to sticking with one story and one idea.
I'm Kale with Cinestruct, and I'm here with Alex Bergman. And today we have a juicy discussion because I want to understand, is the future of filmmaking on TikTok? Now, I know, I see your expression, Alex. I think I know what you're going to say. But hear me out. Everybody's on TikTok. Everybody is watching TikTok. They're scrolling. They're just like glued in. The algorithms got them hooked. So why aren't filmmakers getting in the game and putting their stuff on there and getting those eyeballs from the TikTok audience on their stuff? Why aren't we doing it?
We actually are. um, there's been an increasingly larger amount of money going towards what are called verticals. These are essentially soap operas made for vertical screens. I can imagine at this point every type of genre is being shot, but it's been big in like Korea. They'll make verticals about vertical soap operas. So you are seeing entire teams of filmmakers, directors, writers, whole thing being sent off to go shoot vertical content shows. It's happening right now. They come out in like 1 minute episodes, and you just keep watching the next one and the next one and the next one. You'll have like 100 episodes in a season. They shoot them really quickly. The plots are pretty standard, but they are seeing a lot of success. So the good thing is filmmakers are getting employed by a medium where we thought we were going to, lose the attention spans of people. Well, we're able to go get paid to work in those mediums. If you want the bad news, it's it's junk. Maybe something great will get made there, or maybe someone watching these videos will watch all 75 episodes together and realize they just watched a movie, and maybe some attention spans can get healed in the process. Only time will tell. But it's happening, and hey, it's better than just a bunch of rando crap. There's structures, there's productions, there's budgets, there's above and below the line getting paid. It ain't great pay, but it's something.
Yeah, only time will tell indeed. And one of the things that I was thinking about when I was just looping around this topic in my head, I feel like every platform, there is kind of somewhat of I call it a graduation. So if we think back to YouTube and Vimeo, that kind of had this whole thing with web series where folks would make their web series, and you had some instances like with High Maintenance and Insecure where those series graduated and went to, you know, HBO or, your traditional platform for shows in those cases, or in some cases, I think more limited to films. And to your point, we do have some of this more, I would call it more cinematic content on TikTok, but we don't have that graduation effect, I would say, at least not popular stuff that I've come across. Do you think that there is a reason behind that? Or do you think it's just not a mature enough platform in terms of the stories being told there?
Uh, I mean, the short answer is I think maybe because that is the desired medium with these vertical, they're called verticals. With these vertical films, I mean, once they make the 7,500 episode season, they feel like they're done with the material. Um, Also, you can't program a vertical. You can't sell it to Netflix or whatever because it's vertical. It's for a phone. I mean, I guess maybe Netflix. Shit, I'm sure they're already making vertical stuff that we don't know about. Um, we haven't seen the jump. I think because the desire is for vertical content, which doesn't necessarily speak to the longer form stuff. Um, if you remember Quibi,
Yes.
they were like, they're like, hey, we're gonna make short films and call it a tech enterprise. Um, we remember how well that went, but one of them was a Kevin Hart show of 8-minute episodes called Die Hart. Uh, and once Quibi went defunct, I believe Amazon bought it and just strung all the episodes together and called it a movie. Which not long after Kevin Hart went and made Die Hart 2. For those, for in case you didn't know what side projects Kevin Hart's working on. I know it's hard to keep up with
It's
him.
very hard.
He's he's so prolific.
So, bringing up Quibi was good. I actually wrote down Quibi as I was thinking about some of this stuff because, and you actually touched on it before. The biggest thing, and I don't know why it's so hard to break out of this. I know in some respects on a technical level, the platform, like let's say TikTok or this vertical format, in some ways it can be limiting, and because the platforms might have time restrictions or it might have, in terms of the size of video, whatever, it might have those restrictions. But what it always comes back to is quality, the quality of the stories. And for some reason, through these platforms, the stories are mediocre to bad, or it's intentionally bad. Do you think that if there are genuinely good cinematic stories that take the medium seriously and uses the language of cinema, that could make something like a TikTok a place where I want to go there because I want to experience this amazing story? Do you think that's possible, or do you think there's something else going on there?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you the stuff that's been made has been created in a content forward way. So it's like a vertical screen, let's fill it with material and sell that material. It hasn't been like, hey, I'm a cool auteur indie filmmaker and I just like filming these vertical videos and I'm going to go make string them together and make a horror movie. Um, it has been done. I think they were doing it even in the Snapchat days. Maybe just nobody really cool has done it, or has broken through with it. Somebody will. I would have a lot of fun going and making a vertical horror movie or something. That's 80 1 minute episodes. I think you could have a really good time if you did it in a punk rock way and made something that was actually genuinely engaging and, broke the mold a little bit. Um, but, the medium is conducive to an ADD style dopamine hit, and part of that light switch getting triggered is by completely changing what you're watching. So you can be watching, you know, a a a, a horse in a field in one clip, and then some dancing, and then genocide, and then movie reviews. Like, so you're constantly like bing bing bing, and the medium's just not super conducive to sticking with one story and one idea. So even if you did a great job, um, yeah, maybe you'll hook somebody for 5 clips in a row, maybe even 10. But at a certain point, they're like, "All right, I'll watch the rest tomorrow." Maybe you really gotta hook people that their whole reason for being on there is a diversity of stimuli.
That's a really good point because in a lot of ways, one of the biggest challenge with these new media platforms, and that's really what they are, is that it is algorithm algorithmically driven, and it's not a curation done by people that's saying, "Oh, this is good content that we'll curate together and create this concise and wholesome, in some cases, experience for the viewer." It's an algorithm looking at signals for what people are engaging with in a very specific way, and then throwing a bunch of what it thinks is more engaging content at that person. And guess what? The computer is really efficient at doing that. And it's actually, in the case of TikTok in particular, it's almost like a drug. Like you if you sit down on TikTok for 7 minutes, you'll wake up a week later like wondering where you are. And if you are trying to do something more meaningful, more narrative driven, it is challenging in that environment. The question is it impossible?
It's not impossible, but yeah, the medium is created to stir your brain up like a tornado. So you get completely lost in a dopamine doom scroll, because that feeds engagement and feeds the algorithm. It leaves you in a complete lurch. It leaves you not knowing what's up and what's down. But that's part of the fun of it. Yeah, like you said, it's like a drug. It's a series of sugar highs, devoid of any caloric intake, or devoid of any nutrition. It's the same with any of these Twitter or threads or any of those. You'll chance upon a tidbit that's really good and even important to your lifestyle, or to a cause you're trying to achieve, or growth. You'll even maybe leave a comment and engage, but then you scroll to the next thing and it's something completely different. So it's not there for you to gain any traction intellectually, or to come to a common ground with other people. It's actually built to do the opposite. So you get a little nugget here, and then something completely different. And by the end you've had no real conversations with anybody. You've maybe learned a thing here or there, but to try to put the neural networks together, I mean, that's going to leave you confused for the rest of the day until you go back on there and just do it all over again. That's what all these things are created for. Um, they're just not created for you to sit down and have an engaged attention span where you will come out the other side having pieced together a real train of thought. That's just not what it's for. That doesn't feed the algo. That doesn't feed the advertisements. Um, it's just not what those mediums are for. To say nothing of what that entails sociologically or societally. That's just the deal.
Yeah, and it's I feel like there was kind of a divergence because I really do feel like filmmaking has really basically been able to adapt to just about every new technology shift when I think about it. And it really became a divergence outside of verticals, like you mentioned, where when we went from the YouTube era to this new social media era, and I'll clarify a little bit because I think even within social media started out as, oh, you'll chat with your friends, you'll share stuff with your friends, and then it became, oh, I'll come here to get content. And there was that shift when that happened. And I guess storytelling, at least the storytelling you do through the moving picture, in some ways didn't jump onto that latest bandwagon. And now I feel like it might be getting left behind.
Storytelling in regards to the way we do it with motion pictures, um, it's just a different medium, I think. YouTube, it's YouTube. I mean, you look at YouTube, and it's funny that you say that. It's almost like YouTube is the reading of the video world
Yeah.
now. It- yeah, I mean, it's just a different thing. You're almost shooting yourself in the foot if you're going into that um into that arena and trying to get any sustained attention or engagement. It's just not what it's for. um I don't know. I don't know how long the TikToks and the Instagrams and the X's and threads of this world are going to last, to be honest, because right now, yes, people are engaged, yes, people are doom scrolling, but we all get tired of it. When we start more and more waking up to the realization that our screen time is 8 hours a day, yet we've learned nothing. We've grown in no ways. We don't feel particularly good. We feel a little crazy, even. And it's because of this algo fed, diversified media consumption machine they've created. I think more and more people are just going to get tired of it. Go back to YouTube, old school YouTube. Go back to watching movies, um, reading books, because it's the only way that you can look at all that stuff all day and not go absolutely crazy. Is to slow it down a little. I'm sure many successful shows and things will be made for these vertical mediums, but like I said, I mean, it'll be in spite of the algorithm working against it. Uh, and it'll be in spite of the people's limited attention that they've been trained to have on those very mediums. And at that point, the question is, why do it at all? I'm sure plenty of people will answer that, and we might see something great on there. But even so, it's not what we do, I don't think.
One other way to think about it as well. So these platforms were basically built, and again, there is this delineation between old social media versus new social media. These new social media platforms are how they're designed now. They're basically built for self promotion because it's about, you know, being a quote unquote influencer. So, another way for filmmakers to look at it could be, okay, maybe if I'm not going to put my stuff on there or make my stuff for social media, although we do see some of that too, is it a way for filmmakers to promote their style, to promote their aesthetic? One thing that I've been seeing, um, you remember Tidra, um, who we had on a few months back, and she's been doing some interesting uh, content pieces using AI. And these aren't her films, quote unquote films, but it's her basically saying, this is what's in my head, and I'm going to use these tools and I'm going to put it on the social platforms because, that's the outlet that I have right now. And guess what? People are there. So if we're not using it to tell the actual stories that we want to tell, should we use it to share our artistic style or artistic vision, what we're thinking about in the moment? What do you think on that front?
We have no choice. That's what we have uh, to promote ourselves and to get people to see the bigger picture is offering them a glimpse or a snippet. Um, so, I mean, to be honest, social media is great for that. It's essential. We've been given a platform to do that, and so we have to use it. Um, but yeah, it's to offer a window into what we do, so that hopefully the right people want to look through it, and once they do, we open that window so they can enter the right arena for us to show it to them, whether it be YouTube or the movie theater or VOD or whatever gets them through that door. But yeah, it's not the thing. It's the way to the thing. That's why you see on everyone's Instagram they have a link tree now, and it's like, subscribe to my Substack and pay me $8 a month for my because I wrote something. To their YouTube, to their TikTok, to their we're all juggling these 8 different mediums just to get people to look at the one that we want them to look at.
And that's the challenge, isn't it? Because it's so hard these days to get people to your novel, to your film, to your even your music in some cases. And I mean, that's what marketing is. You have all these different channels to drive people to the actual work. And the incentives of these companies aren't to drive people off the platforms, it's to keep people on the platform so they incentivize you putting more content on there. And then if you try to put your, let's say, your film on there, like you raised before, the algorithm isn't optimized to lock people in to get that story. So,
Yeah. I mean, on Threads, for instance, if you put a link up, it will just not show people your post. So, yeah, it's like, no, we want them to stay here. Um, so that, I mean, that's its own thing, but it is tricky. You gotta just keep reminding people every day.
so unless the folks at TikTok, I mean, if it's still around, who knows? By the time we release this episode, TikTok might be banned in the US.
I
Who knows?
know. Yeah, well, when a Chinese company wants all our information, that's terrible. But when Zuckerberg or Musk or any of those fat cats want every single thing about our lives, then that's fair game as long as the money's being made in America.
Yeah, it's all about the money and who controls it. That's what I mean. That's the state of the United States right now, it seems. But for our indie filmmakers, it's another tool. I don't know, especially coming off of this conversation. And like I said, it's for me, it's kind of a thought exercise as we think about, hey, how do you get your stuff in front of people? You can't ignore these platforms altogether. If you ignore these platforms altogether, you're just not going to reach people unless you're some savant or something.
Yeah, if you ignore the platforms, you're definitely cool and punk rock, but you're also a ghost. So doesn't. It's unfortunate. It sucks. I mean, people used to be cool and not promote themselves, and like the establishment would promote the anti-establishment, but now the anti-establishment has to be like, hey, go buy my book on anarchy, on Book Talk.
Yeah, those days are gone. The gatekeepers aren't really there anymore. The gatekeepers actually what I should say is that the gatekeepers are the algorithms. And unless you figure out how to game the algorithm, then you're kind of you're kind of stuck. But you have to be in the game. The whole point is you have to be in the game. And whether you're putting your stuff on there or you're promoting your stuff through these platforms like a TikTok, that's where the audience is. So is it the future of filmmaking? Probably not. Maybe if ByteDance or Meta they decide that they're gonna be artists and storytelling and civics forward, I don't see it, but mm, unlikely. But whatever we can get out of these platforms, I mean, we should try to milk it as much as we can.
Absolutely. I mean, it's essential to show our material through these platforms, but to exhibit our material through the platforms is doing us no favors. The good news is everyone has, a gigantic television in their home. So it's not like people aren't watching those things. So we need to reach through the small screen to get them to go click a link to watch something on their bigger screen where their attention will be better served.
And with that, if you know of a vertical story that is really good, that's not a telenovela, I really want to see it because I do think. Actually, I have one more point on this. The one thing that I do see on these platforms, and I'm not on TikTok a whole ton, but some of the things that I do see when they make skits, which is basically comedy sketches, they are using the language of cinema to get the stories across. They're doing shots and reverse shots, you know, they're doing editing in a particular way. They're using the language of cinema to tell the story. So it's not that cinema isn't there. It's just not optimized for storytelling in the most effective way. So
Can I piggyback on that? I was watching a kid staring at some show on their screen, as we see every time we go to dinner or something. We will A family will sit their kid with the screen and they're watching stuff on their phone. And that can seem terrible. But I was also raised, in front of a glowing television screen, as many of us were. Um, but I said to my girlfriend, I said, we are going to see some of the best directors to ever exist. The next generation of filmmakers is going to blow us away, because by the time they're 10 years old, they know how to shoot, they know how to edit, they know how to tell a cinematic story when they're essentially children. Um, so they're going to be leaving a lot of us old timers in the dust with their virtuosity. I think that's pretty cool. We're going to see some of the best cinema ever coming out of this new generation that we thought was lost to the dopamine doom scroll. They're going to come out of their fog and they're going to be whiz bang virtuoso filmmakers, at least some of them.
yeah, I mean, they're definitely starting from because man, I have so much more to say now that you brought that up. Because so here's the thing, like when we were watching stuff coming up, it was a very passive experience, right? So we were watching movies and we're watching shows, and what has changed with, for the lack of a better phrase, with the TikTok generation, they're not just watching content. The ones that are more, let's say, precocious, they're also making content, which means they're engaging with the language of how to tell the stories, which means, like you said, when they come out of it, when they grow up, when they mature, they have a much higher floor. They're not working from the bottom, learning the basics like I had to learn the basics in terms of knowing what a good angle just instinctively looks like without even knowing the rule of thirds. Like I had to learn the rule of thirds to know what good framing would what that would look like. Whereas these kids, in a lot of ways, because they're shooting, they probably instinctively pick up what's visually appealing and maybe even start doing new things that are more inventive. So man, that's the positive spin, right? That's the maybe it is the future of filmmaking in a different way. Maybe the future isn't on there. Maybe the future is going to be born of it from the future generations.
I think so. I think that's something to look forward to, is we're going to see stuff we've never seen before, created by kids who are running circles around us. It's going to make me very angry, but also exhilarated to see what people are coming up with.
Yeah, that is exciting. So with that, man, that was a more positive conversation than I thought it would be. Wow.
Yeah, we're positive people. We're just
2025.
happy, positive people.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this conversation, please like, comment, and subscribe, and share some good stuff if you see from the new generation, or if you just see a good vertical, drop it in the comments. We'd love to see it.